It's 50,000 years ago. You're crouched behind a frozen ridge, your legs are numb, and in about 90 seconds, you're going to help kill an animal 10 times your size using a sharpened wooden stick. Right now, in 2026, meat comes wrapped in plastic under fluorescent supermarket lighting. You can have a burger delivered to your door in 20 minutes without standing up. Maybe you skipped leg day this week and called that rough. None of that has anything to do with what's about to happen behind this ridge. Here's the reframe. The Ice Age hunt wasn't a heroic sprint toward glory. It was closer to controlled desperation, a slow, coordinated operation where courage barely mattered, and getting badly hurt wasn't a risk. It was practically part of the job description. Let's start with the weapon in your hands, because it tells you everything about how close this had to get. At Schöningen, in Germany, archaeologist Hartmut Thiema's team uncovered wooden throwing spears, roughly 300,000 years old, found right alongside the butchered bones of horses. These weren't crude sticks somebody grabbed off the ground in a panic. They were carefully balanced, front-weighted, shaped the way a modern javelin is shaped, built by someone who had clearly practiced getting this exactly right, probably after a lot of embarrassing misses nobody wrote down. But even a well-made wooden spear only works within a range of a few meters. There's no rifle here, no scope, no safe distance, no standing back and hoping for the best. Whatever you're hunting has to be close enough to smell, and it can absolutely smell you back. Here's where it gets interesting. Getting that close to an animal that could kill you in one kick wasn't an accident of bad planning, it was the entire strategy. At Cotte de St Brelade, on the island of Jersey, archaeologists including Becky Scott have found piles of mammoth and woolly rhino bones stacked at the base of a coastal headland. The prevailing idea suggests groups may have driven these enormous animals toward the cliff edge on purpose, using the landscape itself as a weapon, because a spear alone was never going to bring down something that large. You didn't outmuscle a mammoth, you outthought it, and you needed the whole group moving in sync to pull it off. Let that sit for a second. Somebody had to be the one running closest, waving arms, screaming, driving a 50,000-year-old distant relative of an elephant toward a drop it couldn't see coming until it was too late. Now picture the actual moment of the kill, because it wasn't clean. Boxgrove, in England, gives us some of the earliest solid evidence of this kind of close-quarters hunting. A shin bone found there, roughly 500,000 years old, shows cut marks consistent with butchery of large animals, and the site as a whole points to hunters getting in close, again and again, animal after animal, for generations, long before anyone at Schöningen ever shaped a spear. This wasn't a one-time gamble you'd tell your grandchildren about for the rest of your life. It was a repeated, grinding routine, the kind of thing you did on a schedule dictated by hunger, not by choice. And the body kept the receipts. Researchers Thomas Berger and Erik Trinkaus, in a well-known 1995 study, examined Neanderthal skeletons and found something strange. The pattern of broken ribs, cracked skulls, and fractured limbs didn't look like the injuries of ancient soldiers throwing weapons from a distance. It looked almost exactly like the injury profile of modern rodeo riders. People getting thrown, gored, and stomped at close range, over and over, and mostly surviving it, badly. Stay with me, because that's the twist worth sitting with. You've probably pictured the Ice Age hunter as some untouchable action hero, spear cocked, timing perfect, clean kill every time. The skeletons tell a different story. These were bodies that had been through it, healed fractures stacked on healed fractures. A hunter in his 30s might already be carrying the same kind of wreckage as a rodeo athlete twice his age, and then he'd go do it again next week, because the group still needed to eat. Here's the part nobody tells you. This wasn't one person's risk. It was the whole group's bet, laid down at once. If the hunt failed, everyone went hungry, not just the hunters. If someone got hurt badly enough, the group had fewer working hands for the next attempt, and winter doesn't wait for you to heal. That's an enormous amount of trust to place in the people crouched next to you behind that ridge, the same people you'd be sharing a fire with tonight regardless of how the hunt went. There was no walking away from a bad coworker in this arrangement. The person who moved a half-second too late, or froze at the wrong moment, wasn't someone you'd quietly avoid at the next meeting. They were someone whose timing you'd be trusting again in a week, because there wasn't really anyone else. There's a place that shows us what a successful version of this actually looked like, sustained over time, not just as a single lucky day. At Krems-Wachtberg, in Austria, Researchers from the Austrian Academy of Sciences uncovered a semi-permanent mammoth processing camp dating to roughly 27 to 31,000 years ago, complete with infant burials, suggesting families lived alongside this brutal, repeated work, not apart from it, tucked somewhere safer while the hunts happened nearby. Killing something that size wasn't a rare adventure story you'd tell around the fire once and never again. It was infrastructure, as mundane in its own terrifying way as a grocery run, and it was how the whole camp, kids included, made it to spring. But it gets stranger, because success here didn't erase the danger. It just meant you'd survived it enough times to still be standing. Every single hunt reset the odds. The mammoth that went down easily today could just as easily have turned, and turned fast, and there was no guarantee which version of that morning you were going to get until it was already happening. So let's reconstruct that 90 seconds behind the ridge one more time. Your hands are cold enough that gripping the spear hurts, and your breath is coming out in short white clouds you're trying to keep quiet. Somewhere to your left, someone you've hunted beside 100 times before is doing the exact same math you are, weighing the cold against the hunger waiting back at camp. Someone gives a signal, maybe a sound, maybe just a shift in posture the whole group has drilled into memory through years of doing this exact thing together. You move. Not because you feel brave, you probably don't, but because the plan only works if everyone moves at the exact same moment, together, no hesitation. The animal panics, turns the wrong way, dust and snow kicking up around enormous legs, and for a few seconds, nobody knows whether this is going to be the good version of this story or the one that ends with somebody being carried back to camp. The honest answer is, we don't know the exact success rate of any specific Ice Age hunt, and anyone claiming a precise number is guessing. What we do know, written in cut-marked bones and rebroken ribs, is that this wasn't rare. It happened over and over, generation after generation, and the injuries piled up as proof of exactly how physically brutal it really was. There's a darker thread here worth sitting with. A Neanderthal hunter walking away from a kill with a rib that will never fully heal, knowing he'll be back doing this again within the week, and a modern person wincing at a rough day behind a desk, calling it brutal. Almost nothing links those two experiences except the word itself, and the fact that both people believed, in that moment, that they'd given something real. So the next time you unwrap a package of meat from the grocery store, or complain that your job is exhausting, it's worth remembering what that word used to actually cost. For most of human history, feeding a group of people wasn't a transaction you completed with a card tap and a receipt. It was a physical bet made with your own bones, alongside people who were betting theirs right next to you, over and over, for as long as the group needed feeding, which is to say, forever. Here's a question worth sitting with. If you had to trust the people around you with something that risky, something where getting it wrong meant real injury for you, and real hunger for everyone you loved, would you have been someone they wanted crouched beside them on that ridge? Tell me honestly in the comments. It's 50,000 years ago. You're crouched behind that same frozen ridge, and somehow, spear in hand, trust in the people beside you, you're about to find out.